realize that classes is starting to be quite a few videos, but there's a lot of information. At the end of it, you'll take a look at it and think, wow, it's not that much. But when you're learning it, it's got lots of little nuances and lots of little things that you need to know. So I'm putting extra videos out there for you to help study for your midterm, which will be the week after next. All right, so we're getting really close to midterm, and we're starting to introduce a lot of different things. And I want to make sure that I've got a nice library of material for you all to watch and be able to study with. All right, the topic today with class in regards to classes is overloaded constructors. Overload's a term that's used quite a bit, and we're going to be using it more in the C++ class because you can overload many different things in C++. But today we're just going to overload constructors. All right, I'm going to walk you a little bit through the class. First, I want you to see that we have three constructors. Constructor 1 is the default constructor. Number 2 is a constructor we pass one item to, and the third constructor is one we pass 3 items to. All right, but I'll explain more about that in a second. All right, private inside of our class, we have a description, and it's a string. We've got the cost, which is going to be a double. We've got a unit, which obviously is going to be a count, and when something's a count, it's almost always an integer. So that's our 3 big things inside of inventory item. All right, I'm going to go down beyond the constructors for just 1 second and just show you. In the email I sent you earlier today, I mentioned setters and getters and how they were mentioned. They were also called setters are also called mutators, and getters are also called accessors. This is more academic. I like setters and getters because that's basically what it is. Setters, we've got 3 items in this. Remember that? We got description, cost, and units. So you're going to need 3 setters: set description, set cost, set units. All right. I like things with symmetry like this that just makes sense. I've got 3 variables, so I've got 3 setters. All right. You send the first one a string, a double, an int. Makes pretty much sense. All right. Mutator, setters. Make sure that you've got that down. Okay. Got 3 accessors. Accessors, getters. You'll hardly ever hear me call these accessors. Maybe just once or twice, just to make a point to kind of get it in your all's minds for a test. I almost always say getters and setters because getters, accessors, get the things. This is going to get the description from the class. Get cost is going to get the cost. Get units is going to get the number of units. So you can see we've got 3 getters and their functions. We got 3 setters, their functions. And in this one, and you don't have to have it, but this has 3 constructors. This is just for the sake of illustration. Most of the time, if I was writing a class, I might have 2, but this one has 3 just to kind of let you get to understand it. All right, I'm going to talk about constructor number 1 first. It's the default constructor. If in the program you type in inventory item and pass it nothing, I'm going to go down and show you that in the program. All right, look, inventory item 1, okay, we didn't pass it anything. Here's item 2, which is going to be constructor 2, and this item 3 actually turns out to be constructor 2, and this is constructor 3 that it uses. But this inventory item 1, all right, we don't pass anything along with this. All right. So it's going to use constructor 1. What it's going to do is when you use constructor 1, it's going to set blank spaces. There's not going to be anything under description. It's going to be blank. It's going to be 2 double quotations, right? It's going to set the cost to 0, and it's going to set units to 0. No units, no price, no description, right? What happens inside the constructors, the overloading is you're going to be using inventory item, inventory item, inventory item, but you're not going to pass it anything. And the program will know because you didn't pass it anything that it does the default variables. Okay, I didn't pass it anything, so it knows to do this with it. It basically sets everything to 0. All right, inventory item, which is constructor number 2. If I pass this a string, only one single string, it'll intuitively, it knows to use constructor number 2. All right, it knows that because constructor number 3 has 3 things in it. Constructor number 1 has 0, so it knows to use constructor number 2. Even though it's named the same thing, it's named inventory item. See how when I highlight one, all of them light up? It still thinks it's that part thinks it's all the same constructor, but it's really 3 different constructors. So I send it a string, a single string. It knows to do constructor number 2, which assigns that string to description and sets, cost in 0 to 0. Cost in units to 0. I'm sorry. It's the end of the day. I'm filming this right after school on Thursday. All right. So constructor number 2, I send a string. It knows to use that description, that string as a description, and assign it under description. And then it goes on its own and sets cost and units to 0. Constructor number 3, I'm going to send it a string, a double, and an integer. And it knows to go ahead and assign that to our 3 private variables: description, cost, and units. So if you don't understand how the program calls the different constructors, watch this again, back it up a minute and a half, back it up 2 minutes, and listen to what I'm telling you. If you send nothing, it uses, if you pass it inventory item, you pass it nothing, it uses default constructor number 1. If you just pass it a single string, it knows to use constructor number 2, and then go ahead and assign the other variables the function does. And if you send it all 3 private variables, or you send it the 3 different types that are used in the private variables, it knows to use constructor number 3. All right. So that's our whole class: 3 constructors, 3 getters, 3 setters. All right. And I tried to comment these. So if you're taking notes in a quiet class, you can actually just kind of watch the video and kind of figure it out. So inventory item 1. All right. Item 1 has, I'm pretty sure I could have put, let me see. Yeah, that would have caused a problem. But the bottom line is, right, I didn't pass item 1 anything. I didn't pass it anything. So what it did was it made a blank object when I say blank, that's probably that's probably not a good term, but it set description, cost, and units to 0. It knew to use constructor number 1. Then after that, I use the things that we used on Wednesday's program. I'm just going to go ahead and assign it. I'm using my setters. Item 1, I'm going to put hammer in for description, 6.95 for the cost, and 12 units for the basically the inventory. So to put information in, I'm going to use my setters. All right. So what I've got here is an empty constructor I made. Then after it, I filled item 1 full of things using my 3 setters. All right. Now I go on to the second one, item 2. I'm making a second object. I'm calling it item 2. I'm sending it pliers. Pliers, the single item, the single thing that I'm passing it. Remember, that's constructor 2. So constructor 2, I'm sending a description. All right. I'll send it pliers. Then I'll make cost, and my constructor makes cost and units 0. So by seeing just one thing inside the constructor, it knows to use the second. Finally, I make a third object. I'm going to call it item 3. It's a wrench. It's $8.75 and it's 20. There's 3 things inside of the parentheses. So the program knows to use constructor number 3 and go ahead and fill all of these objects up. So when you use a constructor, you can send it empty and it'll make everything zeros. You can send a string to it and it'll know to make the string, use that for the string or for the description, and it'll set cost and units to 0. Or if you send it 3 items, it knows to go ahead and use the wrench as the description, $8.75 is the cost, and 20 is the units. Right? That's the only 3 situations you have constructors made for. If you made an item 4 and sent 2 items, nothing would you get errors because there's no constructor set up to handle 2 items. If you send it $8.75 and 20, it won't know what to do with that. All right. If you send it more than 3, it won't know what to do with that. It only knows what to do with closed parentheses, or in this case, no parentheses. Okay, 1 set of parentheses with a string in it, then a string and 2, a double and an integer. So to finish this off, I will run this. Okay, I used all my setters up there, and to output the prices, I'm using my getters, my get description from item 1, my get costs from item 1, my get units. All right, item 2, get description, get cost, get units, and item 3. So printing these things out is really easy. You just remember, for printing, you use your getters. For getting the information in, you use your getters. So I'm going to run this. There won't be I won't enter anything because everything is here. This program has no input. All right, just reviewing these real quick. Hammer, 695 and 12. That's the one that I manually used all my I started out as a 0. Everything was zeroed, but then I manually went in and used my setters for these prices. Okay, the pliers, the cost 0, the units on hand, that was my second constructor. The one where I just typed in the pliers. And then there was my third constructor where I entered everything like in line, wrench, 875 and 20. All right, guys, if you got any questions on this, please ask. You're going to need to know all of this for the upcoming project program. And I will be up in front of the class right now, ready to answer questions if you've got them.